playoff is a dead end for those two conferences. We're going to talk about it. Good evening, and welcome back to the Late Shift Hall of Fame College Football. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. I'm here with my special guest from the Big 12 and College Football Mafia, Nathan Bomber Brown. And if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame college football. Mr. Brown, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you. It's been too long. We need to do a show with you too. This off season has been extraordinary though. So the shows where you and I can just get on and shoot the rap, we can't really do that right now in this off season. It's been nuts.
It's been kind of crazy. This offseason has been wild for sure. Really the last two off seasons because of all the switching around and realignment, which is you guys' forte. But I definitely wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about this stuff. Over the last couple of weeks, obviously, we've had so many things that have kind of come to the forefront, and man, I've said it a bunch of times. I can't stand it that the way that college football was is definitely not the way it is anymore. And I understand that that's part of the deal. But I've said a bunch of times, I'll say it again, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think that the road that we're going down is a little scary for, college football as we know it, to have everybody being a part of it. And I would just say that, man, hey, be nice over there, Sooner in Texas. He's my buddy.
What did I do to him? I didn't do anything.
I know that's not a nice thing to say at all. So yeah, you want to go to timeout, then that'll get you there right there. So
what did he say? What did he say?
Yeah, who let the BYU trash in? That's not cool. Don't be like that. He said, just messing with you, Bomber. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now listen, here's the thing, and we'll go ahead and kind of get started here. We'll say hello to everybody as they come in. It kind of takes them a second to start populating. This new, I was saying the 4-4-2-2. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think that there should be. I think when all things are equal, I'm totally for a playoff format that lets in the best teams, right? In view of the fact of the way things are going, with the disparity in the money that's being pushed out there and who it's going to and how, I think it's a tough ask to say the best teams, because then you're going to leave out a lot of the country.
Yes.
Now, the 4-4-2-2 model, which is where it'd be 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 for the Big 10, but it would also give 2 automatic bids to the Big 12 and then 2 more to the ACC. Then you have Notre Dame, if they get in, plus the highest ranked conference champion from the group of 6 is what it's going to be coming forward.
Right.
That, I know, I understand a lot of people, and I'm one of them. I'm not a huge fan of that because I don't think automatic bids are a good thing. But the way that it's setting up, I've been saying this, I think that there's been new talk lately about a 5-11 format. The highest 5 conference champions make it in, then 11 at-large bids.
Yeah,
I think that if you're the Big 12 and the ACC, you go with your guarantees of getting 2 teams in every year, because without that, the next 7 years could be pretty desolate for those 2 conferences. What say you?
First of all, thanks for the invitation again. I appreciate
Love having
it. It just turned out that I've been up for like 30 hours, and so I woke up from a nap, and here we are. Look, I think I think BYU fans are we were the wandering hillbillies for 50 years, right? Couldn't find a home, and yet we knew, and it's proved to be true, that once we got access to a major conference, not saying it's the conference, but a major conference, we would get whatever access, and as the world turns, we'd be more involved in college sports, right? Well, in basketball, we're right there, right? This year we could be a Final Four team, and football it takes a little bit longer because NIL spending takes a little bit longer. But BYU is going to
But
be
you have
in
the
the top.
ability to spend, right?
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, you have money, you go out and you spend it on recruits, and just like Oklahoma does, or
Sure.
Texas, or anybody
Absolutely.
else. So that story we thought was done, right? We thought that, and we thought the CFP would settle down, and we'd be in a world now where 6 years, the next contract, 6 years of not freedom, of peace. Once that was settled, we thought, let's play football, right? Let's just
Yeah.
go out and play football. But now we turned out that's not the case. Money continues to drive consolidation. Consolidation continues to drive the best brands together, and the CFP recognizes that. So again, as a BYU fan, I can kind of look at this situation and say, I think that's really bad for the Big 12 to only get one, and maybe every once in a while a second bid. I think it's a disaster for the Big 12 that could just possibly even be a part of it. And BYU again, 11-2 last year. And I'll say this: I don't care who's in the room, SEC, Big Ten.
Yeah.
We deserve that 12th spot over SMU. And if everybody watched us take Colorado apart, I think you could have seen we would have given Penn State a much better game. And I'm not saying we win it, but that first round game would have drawn maybe 4 or 5 million people just to get started. And it was a disaster because 11-2. And what was the conversation? Nobody mentioned BYU. Everybody was talking about the loud and now we know whiny SEC, which is Ole Miss, right? Lane Kiffin, or which is South Carolina, who honestly, South Carolina, if they would have gotten in, could have won the whole thing by what they were playing in
I don't know about
here.
all that. I
I
don't know
think
about all that.
they could have done what Ohio State did. I firmly
Nah.
believe that.
No, no, no.
Anyways, the
But
point
anyway,
is
move along. Continue,
they didn't
continue.
get in. They didn't get in either,
Right.
right? And now, so this offseason, now we have everybody's favorite commissioner, Sankey, come out and say, look, this is dumb. We want more teams in, and he's right. They should want.
Sure.
That's what a commissioner should want. At the opposite side of this, you have the freaking ACC and the Big 12. Brett Yormark, I'll speak about him. Jim Phillips is a muppet. All he does is whatever ESPN says. But
Yeah.
the Big 12 has different options. And Brett Yormark could have looked at this a different way. Instead, what is he doing? He's letting them drive the narrative. And now we're going to end up with, for the next 6 years, I said this on Twitter. I think the Big 12 is going to end up averaging 1.4 teams in the playoff for the next 6 years. That's less than half of every available team spot than they would get if it was a 4-4-2-2-1-3. How stupid is that to just take that away? And the reason they're doing it, Jason, is they don't want to have the perception that they're behind.
That's the concern for me, and that's
It's
you know it,
it's out of my mind crazy.
it
It's
is
so stupid. Who the hell cares? One, that ship sailed last year when they voted and gave all the power to the Big Ten and the ACC.
bingo,
One, that's
bingo.
over, and they're never getting it back. Never getting it back. Hey, there's yeah, I think is that who is
Yeah, that's Clint Moses.
that?
Clint Moses,
Yeah,
and
Clint.
welcome to Shaw.
Ian
Is going to
Clinton.
welcome everybody in. KJ
Excellent.
Goated, Sooner in Texas, Corporate Duck, Jimmy Satterfield, Scott Walker, Jackson Johnson. Appreciate all you guys coming in here. Clint Moses, hey, I'd love it if we had many more Big 12 fans in here, ACC fans in here as well. I know it's on the East Coast. It's certainly a lot later, and even for some of those other guys. But hey, Jackson, man, thank you for the super chat. You are
Jackson's
the
a
man.
stud.
He
He's a
said,
super,
help
super stud.
us reach 5,000 subs. We are about 600 away from 5,000 subs. So we'd be excited to hit that number. We'd love to be doing it before the season starts. We'll see kind of how it ends up working out. We hadn't been going as fast as we used to. Sharpshooter podcast, what's up, bro? Good to see you, man. In fact, if you want to hop in here, I'd love to send you because I'd actually like to get. I want to get some conversation from fans of different conferences. Sharpshooter, of course, from the Sharpshooter podcast. Our boy Brinsky, he's great as well. And here's the thing, and here's where I'm with you 100% on it. I was watching your show. I even came on your show for a little while yesterday and got to talk about this a little bit. This right here is what would Yormark do? What would you have him do otherwise? He's limited in his leverage. And the reason why he's limited in his leverage is because they completely caved last year when it came to the revenue split between the Big 10, SEC, and the rest of the country. They allowed it to go to 58%, which ostensibly gave them complete control over the format as well. This battle is taking place a year too late, if you ask me. This big fight and going to war over it is taking place in a year that you don't have any real leverage left. The leverage that you had was right there, and you could have held it up. And the way I looked at it was that, okay, you got to call the bluff now.
Yes.
They're saying they're calling the bluff today. I don't believe that they are, right? To me, it's more of a situation where there's nothing left to call on, because whatever they decide between the two big conferences, and make no mistake, the two big networks, ESPN and Fox. I know ESPN gets the big share the blame in all of this stuff because they are in charge of the play, or they're putting the playoff on for the next while, 7 years or whatever. In the end, I think that you should have made this stand should have come a year ago, because now you don't have anything to really fall back on. And other than apparently they had some, when they were talking about how the playoff structure was going to be for next year and all that other stuff, or how it was going to be for this year, that the Big 12 and ACC agreed with what, doing the straight seeding, which I don't care about. I don't mind the straight seeding. I don't think it was great for the Big 12 or the ACC though, but they allowed it because it's supposed to get them some kind of concession for the next few around, right? The next contract coming up. Supposedly they're going to get some concessions. What are those concessions? I have no idea. Nobody's really said anything about that. They're not leaking it, and they haven't made it. And the reason why they're not is because it hasn't been decided amongst the Big 10 and SEC. The SEC left their meetings this week, their coaches' meetings and ADs and all that, without a decision on what they were going to push for with the Big 10. The Big 10 has said they want the 4-4-2-2-1 format. Again, I would tell you that's because of the fact you just don't have any more leverage left. You better get as many teams into the dance as you can. And how many years with a 5-11 are you going to make sure that you get those two? Because I would tell you that more times than not, it's going to be your conference champion, and that's probably it if you're the Big 12.
See, it's tough. We're talking about how 3 layers to a cake. The top layer is the P2 and very, very slim access. What is that? 30, 18 and 17, or 18 and 16 is what, 34. 34 schools, and then the next layer is the ACC and the Big 12. And I know Clint is in here, but it is still an A4 P2 group. And then you got the G6, and that includes the Pac-12. And there is not a lot. There's not a lot of leverage because, as you said, the fight was last year. This is a stupid conversation. This rage and confusion this weekend is people that didn't listen last year when we screamed and yelled, and now they're whoa, wait, what? It's going away? What? They didn't pay attention for a whole year. We've been talking about this for well over 2 years, Jason. You have too.
Yeah, we have.
And I don't understand why people weren't listening then. Now, Brett Yormark doesn't have any leverage. He doesn't. So then why do it? everybody else wants them to do and go to 5-11? Why not go to 4-4-2-2-1-3, guaranteed your access? Maybe in a fantastic year, you do get 3 teams in, you earn your way into a third spot. That would be great, right? Everybody would applaud that. But just getting the 2 slots by itself is not a surrender. That's the part of this conversation that's stupid. How in what part of this does it make the Big 12 look any weaker or the ACC look any? They've already given that weakness up. So now
Yeah.
that it's baked in, the conversations I've been having on Twitter in the last 72 hours have been, we want to earn it. We want to get in. We're excited to be able to compete for it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You either somebody's going to give you a car or they're going to give you the pieces to put a car together. Which do you want to do? The giving the car, you're driving the next day. The giving the car together, yeah, everybody will look at
You
you
can
and pat
focus
you on
on
the
other
head.
things. You can
And the,
focus on other things
I
to
don't
get more
I don't think
important.
that's it though, Jason. I think it they want reward. They want the world to look at them and say, "Good job. You did it. We support you." They want somebody to pat them on the head after the work is done and they're driving down the road and they say, "See how much work we put in?" That's what matters to them, not just having the car. And so those two are bipolar. You could not be more farther than those two ideas. And so
Yeah.
now where are we going to be in 6 years? We're going to be in a position where the Big 12's had one team in for 4 of every 6 years.
Yeah, if
One
you're lucky,
team.
and that's because here's the thing. Let's kind of go over what this 5-11 is. The 5-11 format to me is kind of a Trojan a horse for a Power Four collapse. I think this is going to push to a more Power Two conference, which I don't know that that's a good thing at all. In fact, that's not what I'm for. But 5-11 means 5 auto bids for conference champions in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and 1 group of 5 champion.
Yeah.
Then you would have 11 at-large bids that would ostensibly go to listen, it's going to funnel straight to the SEC and Big Ten due to ranking bias. It,
Yes.
the strength of schedule, they're screaming about strength of schedule. They're screaming about strength of schedule, and I'm a fan of strength of schedule. I think that if you're going to use it, you should actually use it. Just like you were talking about a minute ago, if they were actually using strength of schedule, SMU and Indiana don't make it in last year. There's no way that they possibly could. Now, but in my opinion, it would basically create a de facto Power Two playoff by probably no later than 2028. I mean, you're talking a couple of years in, you will have, because here's the thing with the 4-4-2-2 model, you're limited to 4. SEC can't have more than 4. The Big Ten can't have more than
No,
4.
no, 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 no.
That
That's not
is the
right.
way.
It isn't, Jason.
Sankey was saying the other day that would limit them to that 4.
No. Let's back up. The reason that was what his point was is that those are the only guaranteed spots. They want more guaranteed spots. It's
Right.
not that they can't earn those other spots. So 4-4-2. So it's ACC, Big 12. Sorry.
Even if
it
that's the case.
it is the case. There's not an if. It is the case.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. But I'm just saying the point I'm trying to make is if you got the 5-11, I would tell you that more years than not, you're going to get 5 teams in from the SEC anyway.
By 5 or 6.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think they want anywhere from 9 to 10 of a 16-team
Oh,
playoff.
sure they do. You bet they do. They're not going to get them. They're not going to get that many.
In the 5-11, I think they could very easily they could get 5. You just said they could get 5 or 6. That means
Both
that
of
the
them
other one's
could.
going to get 4 or 5. That's 10 or
No. 4, 4, 2, 2. Those are guaranteed spots, but the
I'm
1
not
and the
talking about the
3.
4-4-2-2. I'm saying in the 5-11, you could see SEC and the Big Ten getting upwards of 10 teams in every year.
Those 2 will get to it. Yes. Yeah,
That's what
those
I was
2
saying.
will
Yeah.
get it in. They're just not guaranteed.
Sure. Exactly. It's not
That's all
guaranteed.
we're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Sankey wants the college football playoff to turn into the basketball tournament. And the SEC got what, 13 or 14 teams in, right? That's almost a quarter of all the teams came from one conference. That's what he wants football to turn into, but he's not going to get that from the Big 10. Big 10, look, the SEC has been the football playing conference. In
Mhm.
5-6 years, it might be the Big 10 that takes over because the Big 10 has all the money.
Well, there's plenty of money in both of them, but I would say
Nah, it's if you look at it, you did an analysis. If you maybe you missed the show, but the Big Ten by far has the much larger athletic endowments, and they have the money. And that's what pissed the SEC off last year. They only got 3 teams in. Why did they? Well, because you're
well,
getting all these
I
other
think it's
conferences that
I think it's
have money
very now
too.
this is where I will argue for the SEC right now. This is where I'll argue for it is because the Big Ten didn't deserve any more than the SEC did. It didn't have nothing to do with that. They did a better job of protecting their big brands. They're much more top heavy than the SEC is. And I would tell you that the SEC has more teams that can play at the top than the Big Ten does. But what the problem is that the scheduling it's completely different. You have the Big Ten, you have a number of schools, Penn State being one of them. You've heard Matt Rule and all this crazy talk about why in the world would I play a good team outside of the conference? All that other stuff that he's saying. USC still isn't going to play Ohio State for a second year in a row in the new conference. And they're still bitching and complaining. They have one of the worst. They're trying to get rid of the Notre Dame game because they don't want to have a tough schedule outside of this is where I argue for the SEC is that, look, if you go by strength of schedule, there's no two ways around it. You look at Oklahoma right now. You can talk about 8 conference games all you want to. Oklahoma has a tougher schedule than anybody else in the country, and it's not close, except for Florida, who's number 2 in the country. Aside from those two, it isn't close. And out of the top 15, 20 schedules, I think that the SEC has like 12 of the top 20 schedules in the country when it comes to schedule strength, the teams that you play against. So if you're going to go by wins and losses, which is what happened last year, you saw a bunch of win and loss stuff. Same thing with you just talked about BYU. BYU was you beat the hell out of SMU in their own house. You
Yeah,
didn't just
yeah.
you whipped their ass.
BYU's
So
strength of schedule should have had them in the top 12. So strength of
exactly.
schedule, I love strength of schedule. That's something the BYU's always struggled for. I'm telling you right now, strength of schedule, because it defers to the SEC, is going to be something the Big Ten fights to the end of the day, right? The SEC wants those guaranteed spots so that they can get not only 4 but 6, 7, 8 teams in. The Big Ten screaming because they don't get their 4 spots, they might not get more than 3 teams in every year. So
Mhm.
they're all these conferences have different reasons they're cheering for different things. I just think that the Big 12 and the ACC should not have given away so much of their control last year. And
Sure.
now to talk about it, it seems like we're all wasting a bunch of energy for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, and welcome into the show. Football guy Scott Walker, good to see you in here. Riley 2.2-0, which is a bullshit schedule or a bullshit deal in your deal. Fong Wei Reldman, what is that?
I
Wrong
don't
way
know.
Feldman? Wrong way Feldman. He said, I'm for the Cody Campbell model. All teams seeded by him and all games played in Lubbock is the only fair way. Oh, I love hearing that one. Satterfield, good to see you. Moosehead, what's up, my guy? I would have loved to have been in Destin this week. Just didn't quite work out there. Clint says 5 plus 11 will give the Big 12 a chin check, reality check. G5 Pac, Mountain West, AAC, SBC very well could get more bids than the Big 12.
That's
I
just
don't know
being
about all that.
silly.
I don't know
That's just
about all
being
that, Clint.
silly. That's
Yeah.
just being silly, Clint.
Yeah.
They might only get one, but that doesn't mean they're going to lose that second spot to anybody in any of those other conferences. They're going to lose it to the SEC more than likely if they don't get it.
The SEC commission standing firm on not going to 9 games. That's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing at all. I love it. I love the way things just get pushed out there that this is like truth when it isn't. Just like, and you do this a lot, Riley. First of all, everybody in the SEC wants to go to a 9-game conference schedule. Everybody does want to. But what they also don't want to do, in view of the fact that strength of schedule is supposed to be a big part of what gets you in with the selection, why would they do that when that's a guaranteed extra loss for one of the teams in the conference? They're already playing a tougher schedule than you. I don't care who you are. They're already playing a tougher schedule than you throughout the country. No doubt about it. And then if we're just going to go by by wins and losses. And because, like I said with Indiana, they go 11-1 last year. They didn't beat a team that had a win or that had bowl eligibility even. They didn't beat a bowl eligible team. All 11 of those wins. And so we're going to sit here and act like it's all the same and that your wins and losses tell you everything. I'll go with the Josh Pate route. What you are, what your record says you are, is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of bullshit. Now, there's a number of ways that you could fix this. You could have one scheduling model for the entire country. You're going to have to get the schools and conferences to give that up. But that's the only, you either have to go with a scheduling model that is for everybody, and you're going to have to play, similar strength of schedules, or strength of schedule better damn well matter for getting into this playoff. Now, the other way to do it is to go with the 4-4-2-2-1 model that guarantees you get 2 in from the Big 12 and ACC. Because if you go to that, then guaranteed the SEC is going to go to 9 games. Because it won't matter that some of their teams are going to get beat on that last Saturday. That'll get rid of your FCS thing, all you guys bitch and complain about. That's a bunch of crap. That's a bunch of crap that you complain about that, Riley. It is. In the end, everybody in the SEC plays a tougher schedule than you do at USC. We all know it. You know it. Lincoln Riley knows it. You can say what you want. That's a fact. Either go to this is going to take everybody wanting the same things, though. But for the Big 12, if you're a Big 12 fan or you're an ACC fan, please explain to me why it makes sense to go to a 5-11, and you're only going to get the one team in guaranteed every year, and more years than not, that's all you're going to get in. Why does that make more sense than guaranteeing yourself 2 every year? Because Yormark said, we should have to earn it. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know why we should have to do anything. I would prefer to have access similar to what everybody else is getting. Just because it happens to be 2 more, it's the way. Look, the ACC and the Big 12 don't have viewership like the SEC and the Big 10. I mean, people arguing this argument is rooted in deeper stories than just 5-11, 4-4, 2-2, 1-3, right? There's other things that go into this. Media valuations certainly are driving most of that. And look, you can't unwind. And I think this is what they're trying to do, Jason, really at the core. You can't unwind realignment by demanding a different type of access. Realignment's done, right? There's going to be more of it. There's going to be more consolidation. There's going to be less teams that have direct access to certain things. And because of that, they want a different way to make realignment be less important. And you can't do it by the CFP model.
Right. So I was just going to finish it. So let me get this straight. What you're asking here, Drew. A 10-2 Oklahoma State. They're going to put a 10-2 Oklahoma State in over a 10-3 Oklahoma. Tell you that you're wrong. Well, I was typing it in to say it, so I'll just go ahead and put that in there. But so you're going to tell me that there's going to be a 10-2 Oklahoma State team that doesn't get to play for the conference championship, and therefore, but they're going to get an automatic bid?
Yeah, that would be that's what they're saying. Yes, that's
okay. If that's what you're getting at. Yeah. I think that, pigs may fly someday too, but just so we understand each other, a 10-2 Oklahoma State team, I would say you deserve an at-large bid. And that would be one of those years that you probably get an at-large bid.
Just like BYU should have one last year. Exact same methodology, and I agree with you, Jason. I think you're exactly right. The difference is in that next year it'll be 16 teams. Last year it was 12 teams. But at the end of the day, that's the argument that they're hoping for, that a 10-2 team doesn't make the conference championship game, and they, BYU and ASU play for the other one, and that team gets in, and then the Oklahoma State team is sitting there. But let me posit this. Let me put an opposite to you. Wouldn't you prefer you have two guaranteed spots? I don't know you're advocating anything, but for the ACC Big 12 people that want 511, let's say they give you two spots. You know what you can do with those two spots? You can have a conference championship semifinal at the end of the season, and one plays 4 and 2 plays 3. What does that give you? That gives you two more games that give you a ton of money. They're semifinals, and you
Which is
got
what
two really good teams that earned their way in to spots in the final college football playoff.
I love it.
Doesn't that sound better?
That ostensibly turns a 16-team playoff into a 24-team playoff.
24, because every conference would do that. That's exactly right. That's
the
exactly
SEC and Big
right.
Ten are already talking about that.
Yeah, and it's a
Rather than
play-in
having a conference
situation.
championship game, because you don't have to have a conference championship game to have a conference champion.
That's right. That's right. You don't.
Even if you have tiebreakers and that's how you call them the conference champion, so be it. You'll play it out on who gets into the tournament, on that conference championship weekend, and it would be huge.
Yes.
And that would bring in more money for these conferences that need more money.
Yep.
Right now, the SEC and Big Ten are talking about doing that. You're not seeing that coming from the Big 12 and the ACC so far, but you could if you pick the 4-4-2-2 model.
Yes.
That's a lot of games. That's always that's a lot of games.
Well, and what's the opposite? 5-11, you still are stuck with one
still
game.
Playing a lot of games.
Championship game. Yeah, the argument about that's a lot of games. Look, that 30 years ago, that was the argument against even starting a playoff. These kids can't play more games. They're going to classes. Look, I don't know who everybody's watching right now. These kids are being paid millions of dollars. All the way down to the backup center is going to make probably 30 or 40 grand every year. That's a job. Right? That's a job. And if they happen to go to school and get an education, people just need to let it sink in their heads. The education at this point is taking a back seat to what is driving all this, and that's media evaluations and money. So lots of games. Yeah, who the hell cares? Nobody cares anymore. If one team can do it, why can't 8 teams do it?
Everybody can do it, and that's the whole thing. We can sit here and say things. And Drew, you're saying two different things, and then we're supposed to understand it. You're speaking only in regards to non-conference winners under 511 in your questions. None of that makes sense, because if you're a conference winner, with the way things would be in the 511, you're going to play a conference championship game still. So if Oklahoma can't be 10-3 if they're not a conference winner.
That's right. Yeah. They would have to play in the conference championship. They could be 10-3 and lose.
Right, but he was talking about, he just said 9-3 also. So they could only get to 10-3 if they won the SEC championship game.
That's right.
Or they won the play-in tournament, or whatever you wanted to call it, or however they ended up setting it up. All these things are possible. But all these things are possible under the guarantee that you're going to get a minimum of 2 teams into the playoff if you're one of the Power 4 conferences. So none of that makes any sense for you to go 5-11 and take yourself out of all of that.
Yeah.
Because that's the one way that you can guarantee yourself a way in. And let me tell you another thing. If you go to that 4-4-2-2 and you play that conference championship play-in thing where you got, 2 against 3 and 1 against 4. Right? For the 2 spots.
Yes.
That'll be the same in the SEC, except for you would have your conference champion is already going to be in. Your top 2 guys are already going to be in. They've already made it just by virtue of what they did in the regular season.
That's right.
And then the other 2 guys, then you're talking 3 against 6, 4 against 5.
That's right.
But that's a bunch of football being played. And it will guarantee, this is what people that talk about, then you've screwed up the regular season and all that stuff. You're probably going to say that again, except for you would see teams battling for one of those. If you're in the SEC, you're battling for one of those top 6 spots. You got to get into one of those top 6 spots. If you're in the Big 12 or the ACC, you are battling for one of those top 4 spots because you want to get an opportunity to get in. And now you get into that play-in field. Now you make it in. Now we're talking, man. Now it's not just a bunch of biased choices that's going on from some committee. It's how did it play out in the league? How did it play out in the league? And then we go from there. Now, how they seed it will always be what it is. But think about that for a second. You take a lot of the bias out of it if you go to 4-4-2-2. Why would Brett Yormark be against that?
Everybody, it's a myth. It's an absolute myth that games in the regular season will be devalued. That has never been true. It's I'm not sure who started it back in the 80s, but the idea that you put a playoff together, even having playoffs at all, would devalue games in the season is absolutely ridiculous. The only reason that would hold true is if we get into this double, triple, quadruple bye system where the team that's the number 1 seed, the team's number 2 seed, out of some monstrosity of a bracket gets like 3 weeks off before they play a game. And the only game they really play is against the team that fought its way through all these other games. That has never been the case. What the sales pitch on that is, the team that's the number 1 seed doesn't want to lose again. They don't want to end up with like Oregon that happened last year, where they got boat raced by an Ohio State team that maybe if they met them in the first week of the postseason, that might have been an actual football game. What we saw there was a drubbing, and that will continue to be the case.
And at the same time that Oregon had that as the Big Ten undefeated champion, they get Ohio State in the second round, and Penn State gets SMU, and then they turn around and play Boise State.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the 12. It was stupid. So
I'm just saying the because of the seeding the way it was, auto seeding it was the problem. They're trying to fix that. I get that, a part of it and all that. But here's the thing. You want to stop having all this bitching and complaining about that stuff? You do what we just talked about. You can talk, Drew, you can talk about which team would get in over this one. You know what? All of that shit is on the table in a 5-11. Because it's all going to come down to the rankings and your committee and all that. All of that shit is on the table. If you go to a 4-4-2-2 model, you're guaranteed your spots. Now, I would tell you one more time that I'm not a fan of auto anything. I'm not a fan of auto anything. I don't care if you're the conference champion. I don't care. And if you want to do it, I would say the conference champions, it stops there. So if you want to do your 5 conference champions are guaranteed, fine. But I'm just telling you, it's because of the fact that the differences in the payouts and the differences in the brand size and how much. Look, BYU doesn't have the same problem as the rest of the Big 12. They don't. They have money that they can put into NIL that will get them. BYU is probably going to be fine. But the truth is, it's going to be different for Utah. It's going to be different for Colorado. It's going to be different for Okie Light. Once you start having to pay the $20.5 million, you guys talked about this yesterday. Once you start having to pay the rev share, the $20.5 million, now all of a sudden, how much do you have left in booster money to pay for good players that are going to allow you to compete?
Yeah.
How many are even going to be able to pay the $20.5 million all the time?
In the Big 12, we talked about that last night. My personal opinion is it's going to be maybe 60%, but we don't know yet, right? Utah's already come out. I didn't know this. You said it last night. Utah's going to be $15 million. $15 million in modern football will get you a team in the top 30, maybe. It's less than that, actually.
$15 million for what?
Revenue share. They're not even going to go to 20.5. So, see, that's a problem.
I thought that you had to do that.
No, it's an option. You sign up for the option to go to 20.5, but you don't have to. Okie Light as like you like to say, Oklahoma State could only do 10 million if they wanted to. They're not required to spend it.
Right.
So
Well, I'm again, I think that you've painted yourself into a corner at this point if you're the ACC and Big 12 because of the fact that you waited a year to have this argument.
yeah,
And this was look, this came from Larry the GM. Some CFP podcasters were railing against the 44221 a week ago, and today they rail against the 511. Basically, they're against
wasn't
anything
me.
that the SEC might support. Okay, now you can say this, Larry, and I know what you're talking about, but I would just tell you this: the 44221 didn't look as good last week as it does this week against the 511.
Well, I've never wanted if you put the two up on a whiteboard over the last 2 years, whenever it's come up, I've always said 4422 is better. I've never said 511 is better. It's ridiculous to assume that one's better than the other, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think there's any two ways around it. It's because, look, in a perfect world, we'd all have the same amount of money and we'd all be able to, everybody could be as competitive as they want to be. The truth is, even in the NFL where everybody makes the same money, everybody makes the same money in the NFL. Understand that. They have the draft that is set up for everybody to be built equally from year to year. Why is it that the same teams win all the time? I'll tell you why. Because not everybody spends their money the same way. Not everybody is willing to say, okay, yeah, we got all this extra money. Let's get a better coach. Let's make sure let's spend in free agency a little bit more and get the quarterback we need or whatever the piece that we need that's going to make us more competitive and give us a chance to win a Super Bowl. It's never going to change that either. But right now, if you look at college football, there are haves and there are have-nots. And the difference between the haves and the have-nots is huge. It will always be right now. It's as close as it's ever been because of NIL without the rev share. When the rev share is added into that, it goes right back to being a big chasm. That's my opinion.
No, he's right. Greg, what Sark said, the 40 million is the starting point for Texas. So whether that's true or not, it's a reality.
Saying it isn't, but it doesn't. Yeah.
Ohio State spent 38 million to win one last year, so
Drew, this is one of the things that you're saying that finally it makes sense for your average SEC fan. For your average SEC fan, we should love the hell out of 511.
Yes, that's right. I don't know why people that are in SEC land aren't screaming for 511.
Yeah, if you're an SEC fan and you don't care about the greater good of the game, which it's not our job to care about the greater good of the game. It's our job to care about our school.
That was a ridiculous statement, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, from your mark?
What's the good of the game even mean?
I don't even know what that means anymore.
Can somebody define that for me?
I think that's you trying to get sympathy from the rest of the country, and you're trying to win that pat on the back that, you know what, I like that guy. Maybe he's trying to secure his next job. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, whatever it is, because here's the deal. What you just did, if that's really what you guys are headed towards, and it amazes me that it appears that is the case. What you basically are doing is torpedoing your leagues. Because the difference in 7 years, they're going to come to a new playoff. 2032 will be the start of the new playoff formats or whatever after this?
2030, yeah, 31 is this next one goes through. So the next negotiation is 31, 32, or 31 through 36, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So then why care? But what do you mean why care about the SEC? Because it's the conference that your team is in, Christopher Shannon. I'm saying if all you care about is that, and I'm not telling people what they have to care about. You care about whatever the hell you want. You care about what you want. I'm telling you, as a person who wants to see college football continue to be competitive and have as many teams with access to the game as possible, the possibility of having the Cinderella story, which is getting lesser and lesser.
Yes.
But look, I think more teams should be involved. I think that the G5 is still should be involved? I do not. Do I think that you should figure there's other ways that you can figure that out. But I think that if we're talking about fairness, and look, my saying on this show and all the time is fair is where you go to judge pigs. That's not ever what it was intended to be for college football was fair. Never. It's still not supposed to be fair. And so the idea that a commissioner would come out and say something because that's the fair thing for college football, it didn't make it more fair for you to say that shit. It makes it worse for you to go to 5-11. Fairness if you want fairness, you get at least 2 of those programs in instead of 1. You get 2 shots at the crown instead of 1.
There is no fair, Jason. Come on.
No, hey, this is where you go to judge pigs. I said that.
Yeah, fair is not.
I know.
Look, I raised my kids. They're all smarter than me, and they're going to make a lot more money than anybody else that I know. And I've told them there's no such thing as fair, and there isn't. There is no such thing as fair. So
the real issue is strength. Why not make a 1-year deal and adjust every year? They'll never do it because that's not. And here's the other thing, just so everybody understands, Greg Sankey's job is not to take care of the entirety of college football. He is not the commissioner of college football. He's the commissioner of the SEC. He's supposed to make it as good as he can for his conference. I know we want to put the horns on him and he's the devil and all that kind of shit. I don't know. He should be. He has to do what's best for him and his league. Just a guess, Yormark is fed up with the Big 12 administration decision-making. That's probably right on the money. He tried his best. If they fail now, it's on the teams and not Yormark. But here's the thing about that, though. Clint, I would definitely agree with this because from all the years that I've covered the Big 12 and all the presidents throughout that damn league, and Bob Bowlesby, they I always laugh at Kurtz, who's always acting like Bob Bowlesby was such a great ambassador for the Big 12 conference. He was a walking shit show. He was a we'll wait until it happens and then we'll scream about it guy. Yormark has at least up until this point been proactive in trying to secure better deals for his deal or for his league. He's not always going to make the right choice, but here's the deal. The Big 12 should have died when Oklahoma and Texas left. The Pac-12 fumbled and screwed that thing up so badly. They went from in the catbird seat to dead, ostensibly. Imagine if the Premier League only cared about Man United and Arsenal. We're not talking about the Premier League. If it was that way,
there would be relegation and promotion, and then it really would be an earn it situation. But
right.
I would love that. By the way,
saying stuff like this, people keep saying things like this, and it doesn't match up with reality. It's got to be reality, folks. It's the best interest of the SEC to make short-term playoff deals. How is that? How do you figure that? When they can continue their playoff deal right now, by the time this is all over with in 2031, they'll be making $100 million a year per school. Why is it better? Why is this in the best interest of them to change that? They're not in danger of anything. Nobody in the SEC. Why would you change that if you're the SEC? You're not making sense. You're not making sense, man. We need to remember these conference commissioners, although the most powerful name in the room, answer to the universities. Absolutely. Yeah, he did. But Right now, how do you think he'll be remembered if it goes to 5-11? I mean, I'll just say again, look, there's the way I look. I'm trying to look at this in the four auto bids to the four highest ranked conference champs. I don't know. The Big 12, let's look at it this way. The Big 12 and the ACC, they're not going to be able to compete financially, but they could strategically. They're not going to hand them $1 billion a year deals. They're not going to do it. But their only leverage would be that CFP. That's the only leverage you have. And if you go to that 4-4-2-2, even though I know that's what the Big Ten and the SEC originally came out with, if you listen to what Sankey said last week when he said, look, it's not it. I'm not going to sit here and get lectured about the good of the game stuff. You know what? He followed that with everybody kind of stopped at that point. But what he said was, is it better for the SEC to go to a 12-team playoff? No. Is it better for the SEC for us to have a 16-team playoff? No. Because if we were at a 14 playoff this past season, you have two SEC teams and you have two Big Ten teams in. Period. End of story. That's the way it would have been. So they've allowed and they've helped vote in this new playoff system for the good of the game. And he's getting, of course, killed over it. And I understand it. I get it. When you're on the other end of it, I understand it. The point I'm saying is the only way you can do it is to outmaneuver. Their only leverage is those two at-large, or is not having as many at-large bids. You can guarantee yourself a place at the table, the biggest place at the table possible. You're never going to get 4. It's not going to be 4-4-4-4. If you do that, then you cut out the G5, which everybody will throw a fit about too. But it will keep all 4 major leagues relevant if you go to the 4-4-4 or the 4-4-2-2-1 model. Please step in, Bomber.
I mean, everything you said, I can't really disagree with. I don't have a problem disagreeing. It's just I have to have something to disagree with you about. I think at the end of the day, and maybe we get to a point where we beat the dead horse too often, is that you have competing interests at these conferences that are driving decision making. The SEC and the Big Ten each have their own. The Big 12 and the ACC and everybody else has their own, and they're trying to service their members as well as possible. I just think what happens is you get into the forest and you can't see the trees. Once you're in the middle, once you're in the foxhole and you're under fire, and you know this, once you're in that hole, you can't just put your head up and look around and go, well, yeah, let's try to find something else. No, once you're in it, you're just trying to survive. And that's what 511 feels like to me. It feels like you've had these commissioners in a foxhole. They've been under fire for literally years. Realignment has been the bane of their existence, and they're just putting their heads up and they're just trying to look around and say, well, what can we do to survive? Well, can we do? Well, the Big Ten and the SEC came to you and said, they whispered in your ear, hey, 511, boy, if we give that opportunity for you, you can go out and win. You could have 9 teams from your conference compete for the college football playoff. And whoever the conference commissioner is that's been doing this forever looks around and goes, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But it sounds pretty good under fire. If you were apart from it and you looked at it and you really broke it down, you looked at these extended college, semifinal college playoff games, and you did some of these other things, that the 8 versus 9 scheduling, which still hasn't been solved, by the way. The SEC doesn't want to give up they don't want to go to 9. There's no reason for them to go to 9, and the Big
They
Ten.
actually do want to go to 9.
I did. You said that, and I just disagree with you. A few might have said that. I find it hard to believe because
the grand
you have a better.
majority of the actual schools, I'm saying the schools in the SEC, whatever the leadership is, I'm telling you, the leadership of most of these programs do want to, because, and I'll tell you why. Because it preserves their rivalries. If you don't, you have no way of preserving all the rivalries that you have from 100 years.
Well, you could change the scheduling to preserve those. It doesn't have to be a 9th conference game. Well, give me an example, and I'll give me an example that I can't
Because
try
right
to
now,
organize
okay,
around it.
because here's the way that it works out at the moment. Like, say, Texas A&M, this is their 13th year in the SEC,
Yeah.
right? This will be their 13th year, I believe. I think it's like that. 12th or 13th, something like that. They've played Georgia one damn time
Okay. That's
because
not a
they've
rivalry, though.
no, I know that. But you also want to play teams within your conference. If it's a conference team, you want to play against your conference opponents. The 9-game deal gives you, if the way that they were going to set it up, you would have 3 protected rivals.
Okay.
So, like, say Oklahoma would get, it's going to be Texas always.
Texas
Missouri
A&M.
would be one of them. And then it might be LSU. It could be Florida, depending on how it all worked itself out. But those
Okay.
are 3 protected rivals. The rest of the teams in the league, you would play on an every other year basis, which means that you save a lot of problems. But so right now, as it stands, if they stick with 8 and they don't just do what they just did for the last 2 years, which is they made one schedule and they did it for 2 years because that way they could preserve the rivalries for those 2 years. If it goes to the kind of way that they're talking about, if it stays at 8, you're going to lose Georgia and Auburn, which is the oldest rivalry in the South. It's not the most important one, but it's the oldest one. That's gone out the door. It'll be at best every other year.
But they could build a schedule that had that every year. If they wanted to, it's a choice, not
They
to.
win a lot of ways around it and trying to figure out ways to
But you
save
get
all
my
those
point,
things.
though, right? If the energy's there, somebody will take the time to make it happen. If a
Yeah,
conference wants to reserve those, Texas A&M, if you want to preserve that
but
every
you have
year,
to give up
tell
something to
everything.
get it that way. You'd
Yeah,
have to give up one thing to get another, though, right?
yeah, but the giving up is you want to play you want to play on the Eastern time zone. You want to play a team that is a Florida. You want to play a South Carolina. That's what you're giving up, is that additional trip east. So while you could protect the rivalry, all it is a twist of a pen, and Texas A&M always play. Everything else has to fashion around it. You could build that schedule every year.
Hmm. Well, you could. I mean, theoretically, sure. But again, you would rather have a 9-game conference schedule so that you don't have to give up one thing to get the other.
I don't
You
agree. I think you wanna keep your games lost down, and you wanna get 8 teams in the playoff, and the way to do that is nobody has that ninth game as a loss, and you're
You do
playing
if
Alcorn
you have the
State.
guaranteed look, there's 2 ways to guarantee your spots in there because of either strength of schedule or the 4-4-2-2 model.
Yeah, I okay.
The
We just
strength of
disagree on
schedule.
this is all. That's cool. That's
Would the
cool.
strength of schedule not fix that if they actually had it as a metric that had to
No,
be
I
worked
don't think
into
so.
it?
Nope, I don't think that's a fix of anything.
How's that? What do you mean?
Strength of schedule doesn't fix anything because every other conference doesn't do the strength of schedule thing. What the
It
SEC's
should.
doing, they
That would be the
could, just like you could do a rivalry of Texas and Texas A&M every year. You could do those things, Jason, but
No, I'm saying
SEC
if you
controls
do a
theirs.
5-11, if you do a 5-11, I guarantee you that they're gonna only agree to that if strength of schedule becomes a metric that you actually choose teams by.
If you're going to do that, then get rid of the committee. If you're going to go 5-11, get rid of the committee, go to the BCS.
I agree with that part. I'm cool
Everything
with
that
that.
we're talking about is a choice. Every one of these things we've
They're
talked
always a
about
choice,
is
but
a choice.
if
What is the
one
thing
if
that's going to make the difference?
what would make the well, strength of schedule would make a difference, Bomber.
I
It
don't
would
think
make
it
a difference.
offsets the ninth game. I don't think it does. I don't think those two things are equal.
It would look, if the strength of schedule matters, it would offset it. Now,
Okay. All
for
right.
that last team that may or may not get in, possibly, but that's where I think the 4-4-2-2 model, I'm starting to warm up to the play-in stuff a hell of a lot more than I used to be when they first brought it out there.
I
I
think
think
play-in's
everybody
fine.
getting to do it in that, everybody getting to do that, that becomes now we're talking. Now we're talking about at the end of the year, the best 4 teams in the Big 12 are gonna battle for those 2 spots. What's more democratic than that?
Okay.
What's a better
I think,
what's a better way of getting it? You don't have to worry about the
what?
freaking commissioners or
I-
I mean the
Right.
committee. You don't have to
Right.
worry about them anymore.
Right. It's a better world, in my opinion, 4-4-2-2. But that's not the world that, at least right today, that they're fighting for. The world they're fighting for is 5-11, and the difference is a strength of
Wild.
schedule versus ninth conference game. And Ohio State does not want to play a ninth game if Georgia doesn't have to, and vice versa. Georgia doesn't want to play a ninth game, even if Ohio State does. So those things, I don't know how they're going to square that
Well,
circle.
here's
Those
the
two
difference in that,
conferences
though.
have to
They played
resolve
that
that,
ninth
though.
game, but look at their strength of schedule for somebody like a Big Ten. They're not playing.
Yeah, I'm
They've
not
played
getting into that.
trash schedules.
Yeah,
Trash
I'm not.
schedules.
That's something, I'm not a Big Ten guy. I'm not going to fight for the Big Ten and
I'm
their
not telling you
schedule
to fight
versus
for them.
for
I'm
the
saying that
SEC.
there's both sides of the story, though. You could say one side and not say the other because you're not an SEC guy or you're not a Big Ten guy. But the truth is, both sides still exist.
They do exist, but my
The
point is
schedule
that both
should
of those
matter. That's
things.
what I'm saying.
Let me say
It's
it a
got to
different
matter.
way. Let me say it a different way. If strength of schedule is the determiner, and they get the ninth, and they don't do the ninth game, Ohio State's still going to be upset.
Big
And Ohio
Lubbock.
State, okay, we're going to have to depart there. We're just going to have to end there
Look
because
at
I
this.
completely
Look at this.
disagree with you.
The 5-11 keeps the Big Ten SEC schedule alliance from happening. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I
No, it
actually think
doesn't.
that there's a problem with that right now. I do think that there's a risk that does not happen. But Tony Petiti, I don't know if how much you've seen him recently.
He
Tony
hadn't said a
Petiti,
bunch lately,
that's
right?
because he's
He
been
hasn't talked.
5-0. He's been running for 5-0. He wants to stay on the DL. But right now, I'm telling you right now, that scheduling alliance right now, it's losing its charm.
Oh
Greg
no, and you
Sankey's
know
going
what?
out there. And saying, you know what, our conference is
Why
so
do you think it's
strong.
losing its charm? Because Matt Rules and the Matt Rules of the world that don't want to play that game.
I don't care about Matt Rule.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the SEC thinks that they don't need the crossover game because they'll just play conference games, make more money. They don't have to share it with the Big Ten, and they'll basically draw the same amount of dollars. Ohio State needs those games. Ohio State needs to play Georgia to get the additional money because the SEC is going to feed on itself. The Big Ten can't. You've said that forever tonight. The Big Ten's top heavy, 6, 7 teams. The SEC's 9, 10, 11. And so those two things, those are two different worlds. And here the broadcasters are trying to shove them together, right? The Big Bang, it's in reverse. It's like a nuclear fusion type thing. You're pushing everything together. And in my opinion, the CFP
Yeah, that's another one of those
is a counter,
possibilities. Sure.
it's a possibility. Of course, this is all possibilities.
Sure, sure.
But
But this
there's
5-11
more.
keeping that
Which is
from
more
happening.
important? Which is more important, 5-11 or scheduling alliance?
Well, I don't know, because here's the thing. How does that scheduling alliance help? It's the money part I see. I get what you're saying with the money part. But the 4-4-2-2-1 means that scheduling alliance doesn't mean shit to you if you're in the Big Ten or the Big 12.
I don't think that's right. I still think that they would like to play those games. I do think the Big Ten is going to want a scheduling alliance at some point.
Okay,
The
fine.
SEC doesn't need it. That's my point.
I don't think that the SEC needs it either way. The point I'm trying to make is that in the 4-4-2-2,
they don't need it either way. You're right. They don't need it.
The 4-4-2-2 doesn't matter anymore if they have it.
Because I still don't think it matters. I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make, the only thing I'm trying to say is, Big Lubbock, this thing right here, one thing, the 5-11, if you get rid of the scheduling alliance, okay, fine. But maybe that happens. Well, how does that help the Big 12, though? How does that help the Big 12?
None of this helps the Big 12. I don't know what we're talking about here. We're talking about two conferences.
That's the whole point I'm trying to make. The 5-11 does not help the Big 12. Even if you think that keeps the scheduling alliance from happening, in the end, the 4-4-2-2-1 means the Big 12, the ACC can have their play in. They're going to get two teams no matter what. You can take the top 4 teams and decide every year. No, it has nothing to do with a committee. Every year, you get to decide who are our best teams. And guess what? We can figure it out on the field. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with the Big Ten and the SEC anymore.
Big Lubbock's a smart dude. So generally, I take what he says and I say, yeah, you're probably right on something
That's
like
not the
this.
wisest one right there, though.
Well, I don't know if it is or not. I'm not putting a value judgment. I'm just saying from an analysis standpoint, I do not think either way the SEC needs the crossover game, and I do believe that the Big Ten does. That's it.
Well, okay. I still don't see the difference. The point that the whole point of this whole show was my argument that I was making, and I thought that's the same. I think the 5-11 is bad for the Big 12 and the ACC.
Yes, it is.
And so to me, the 4-4 it's another reason that the 4-4-2-2-1 deal works better. It
Yes.
just does.
Yes. You and I agree. Yeah. I just think we agree for different reasons. I agree. Well, that's not true. You agree because you were in the Big 12. You know what that access or being frozen out
Yeah,
looks like.
I listen, I
Yeah,
want
that's
everybody
true.
to have a shot. I don't
You do.
care how real a shot it is because to be honest with you, I don't think that I think that the Big 10 and the SEC are gonna win 9 out of 10.
But if you were a Georgia guy, you don't care either way.
No, probably
Because
not.
Georgia's been forever in the SEC, right? You and I can look at this because you were in the Big 12. I currently
I'm Georgia,
am,
I'm probably pissed off that
and
there's
it's
a 12-team
5-11 is
playoff now.
broken.
If
Yeah.
I'm Georgia, I'm probably mad there's a 12-team playoff.
Well, I don't know why. I still don't. That nobody makes. Why wouldn't Georgia want to beat the
They
hell
won
out of
back to back on the 14
why?
playoff. It was
I
set
know, but
up
it's more
well for them.
money, it's more fun. Why wouldn't Georgia
Sure.
want to beat the hell out of a Big 12 team? I don't understand it. It's the reason is because there's a risk. There's a 5% risk they could lose, and nobody wants that. So that's what we're actually talking about when we talk about a CFP and that's why Sankey wants this 12 layer cake to put a CFP together when it's straight seeding 16 teams, 1 to 16, just like a basketball tournament. Everybody plays, you end up with a champion. Sankey's trying to protect his best teams, giving them weeks
Well,
by
and he
and all that
should
kind
be,
of stuff.
right? He should be trying to protect his
Well,
best.
that's his job. I just think the rest of the college football world needs to slap him down. That's my opinion.
Well, in the end, you have to do what's best for your conference. But I agree. I think that the way that inadvertently, the 4-4-2-2-1 is the best for the rest of the country.
It doesn't hurt.
I'm not saying
Love
that
it.
that's what he was doing that to because he cared about the Big 12 or he cared about the ACC. That's not what he did.
Big Love.
Now
Let me
he's
answer this,
go ahead.
Jason. Let me answer this Big Love thing about Notre Dame really quick. And we talked about this on our show. Notre Dame has zero reason either way. 5-11, 4-4-2-2. Notre Dame is not joining the conference because why? Because it was determined they don't have to play a playoff game in their tournament. They don't really have to have a schedule that's maybe 7 A4 and 5 G6 or independent teams in their schedule, so they could go 10-2 every year, or 9-3 more than likely in a 1 to 16, and always get in the playoffs. So Notre Dame, it could be a number one seed without winning a conference championship game or a playing game for that matter, and they would get whatever that would like a 2-week break that you wouldn't even have to call a bye. They get to go to Florida for 10 days while everybody else is playing fight in football games. So Notre Dame, in my opinion, still will never join a conference. And all this did was codify it, in my opinion.
Yep, they just made it easy.
Yeah.
They don't have to now.
Yeah.
They
No.
don't have to now. They were never going to have to, by the way.
I agree
And
with
guess
that
what?
too.
And
Yeah.
here's why: because Notre Dame is Notre Dame. Notre Dame no matter what your format is, no matter how much we all hate them, it doesn't even matter. Notre Dame is worth more money than everybody else. They just are. More teams want you want to know why your team wants to schedule them on their regular season? You know why they're never going to have a hard time filling up a regular season schedule? Because they bring a lot of damn money to the game every time.
Jason, can you get the Sooner in Texas comment, the latest one he just did there a second ago? I think Sooner in Texas misunderstanding what I'm saying. I I I am not complaining about the access BYU has in a 4-4-2-2. I'm not sure what you're hearing.
He's not. He's
I
not.
never said that. sooner in Texas. I said the exact opposite. I said the Big 12 should take the 2 and be excited that they're in it with 2 teams. I think 5-11 is a disaster for the Big 12 and for BYU. So
Yep.
I think you maybe heard somebody else say that.
I think the
I've
scheduling
not
alliance
said
does
that.
hurt 'em. Yeah.
I've not said that since any of the CFP formats
No,
have
if
been
you guys
talked
should go
about.
back and watch his show from Friday. I was on it, Kuz was on it. Now Kuz had a different,
Coos wants to look at it 5-11, merit and win your way in. I think all that is extra work. So
yeah, I think that all this merit stuff it's all well and good for if you're the Big Ten and the SEC
yes,
because you can get in on merit
yeah,
because you out recruit everybody.
yes, that's
You
right.
have the ability to continue out recruiting
Yes,
everybody because of not just well, first of all, because of money, and secondly, because of where you are.
yeah.
The best players in the country are coming from that area of the country, by and large. Now, there's going to be some everywhere, but the truth is, you're going to get a larger percentage of those players to play in the SEC and at the big boy schools of the in the Big Ten because they can outpay you. That's never going to change, folks. That's not going to change. The scheduling alliances, all that other bullshit, you could come up with all these other answers. The point is whether the SEC intended to do this or not, the SEC and Big Ten, the 4-4-2-2-1 actually benefits those other two, quote, power conferences a hell of a lot more than the other one will. You're going to drown in 5-11.
Hey, Jason,
10 to
really,
16 will be from those schools. So go ahead.
can I share that screen? I just popped it up.
Yeah,
Can you see
please
that?
do. Yeah, I got you.
What do I have to do?
Oh, I got it. It's there.
Okay,
I got it. I'll
okay.
put it up there.
Okay, you want to know historically because I'm seeing comments, Darrell or somebody said something where the Big 12 wouldn't get that extra spot. It's actually not true. Historically, and it's not sharing, so I don't think
Oh, I
anybody.
got it. I'm working on it here. Just
Okay.
give me a second. Give me one
The
second.
SEC put a packet together, which was fantastic, by the way. It was by Navigate. Their third party, they do NIL, they do a bunch of other things. This was produced and given out at SEC Media Days. This is not created by the Big 12.
Right.
This right here tells you who gets those teams in historically over the past 10 years, and it includes current membership, not last year, doesn't include Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12. You read right there, and it says it will be the Big 12 2.5 times normally, right? Would have more teams in the top 25. In a 1 to 16, that means they would be a 2.5 into a playoff every year. So if you go every year 2.5 and you're Brett Yormark, you're looking at this. I'm guessing Greg Sankey sent this to him. This is what Brett Yormark's basing his decision making. Certainly
Can you
his
explain it though? Can you explain why
sure.
this is real?
Well, look
Yeah.
at it. Look at it. So at the
Yeah,
top
yeah.
it
I'm
says
looking at it. I'm looking at it. Just explain it
2026
to me.
2026 membership, and everything at the top tells you where those ranks would have been. AP Top 25, CFP, average member. So SP is basically all of you. It's like RPI.
Mhm.
Then you have FPI, and then all these other things that went in that were used when they built the BCS. These are all averages that they put in a computer. They picked a 1 to 4 playoff. They did
Right.
if they did the same thing today. They put the same data into a 2025-2026 college football playoff. The Big 12 would get 2.5 teams in. This is what Brett Yormark is using to justify his decision making. Do we think that that's going to be reality next year? I haven't met one person that tells me the Big 12 is going to get 2.5 teams in. So we'll just say we'll round down, say 2. But next year the Big 12 gets 3 teams in. Come on
Let
now.
me ask you a question. Does now from 2015 to 2024, the Big 12 had Oklahoma and Texas in it though. Is
Yeah, I
it
mean that throws them out. Oklahoma and Texas on this math, Oklahoma Texas is out of the Big 12.
okay? I I tend to wonder about that.
Well,
But I
I
get
didn't
it.
I
I
didn't
mean,
put this together.
if this came from the SEC,
Yeah,
I'm
Navigate
guessing that
made
would
it for the
be
SEC. So
right, right. Okay. No, no, no.
yeah.
I'm not saying I don't believe you. I just tend to. It makes me wonder. Like,
Yeah,
geez.
I didn't create this on my little old Mac O2S or whatever.
I know you didn't. Obviously, this is
Yeah,
a screenshot. We see it.
this is SEC put this together, and this is what Brett Yormark's using for his decision making. I know I wasn't in the room. I can only imagine though that Navigate maybe sent it to him. Somebody sent it to him beforehand, and all of his announcements, all of his everything he said, in my opinion, has been based on this metric right here, saying 2.5 teams. And I don't know what world he's living in, because I don't see 2.5 teams for the Big 12
That's what I'm
maybe
saying too.
ever.
Like, because look, if that was the case, think about this for a second. If that were the actual case of the matter, then you would have gotten 2 teams in last year, not
Yes.
the ACC,
Yes.
because they would have picked BYU rather than SMU,
Well,
which they should have anyway.
yeah, this is a 16 team. This is based on 16
Okay,
teams.
on 16. Right.
Yeah, 16. The ACC has 3 teams, everybody.
Right. The pack numbers have to be wrong? Why do
They're
they?
not wrong. I don't know who's spinning, but that's data directly taken off of those 1, 2, 3. That's 7 metrics. Math. You can't fight math.
Right. No, I mean, this is what was out there. And so I mean, we could all go and figure this out. You have to go and look all that up.
Here, I'll post it on Twitter. Brandon Marcello posted it. I want to give him credit.
Oh, I was just about
Anybody
to
who
pull it back
follows me on
up.
Twitter, you'll be able to take that article and break it down. It had the entire slide deck. I think it's 7 or 8 slides.
Mhm.
And this is what was presented at SEC Media Days. Take it for what it's worth,
No,
but
I
this was
believe you.
put out by the SEC. So if we have a bunch of SEC fans in here,
Sure. No, yeah. The SEC made the paper, handed it to the media during the SEC meetings. Yeah, they did. They did. No, but it was all built on math, though. I mean, they went by this is what the strength of schedule rankings were. This is what the strength of record was. This is what your I mean, they had all those different areas where they ranked in all those things. The ACC only ranked in the top 3 one time in 1 year in one category. The rest of the time they were the 4th. Washington State and Oregon State made the CFP more than any league. No. What do you mean?
I don't know what that is.
How is that? How do you figure that? Can you send me that screenshot, or is that there somewhere? Or it
I'm
was
going to put it on Twitter. I'm
on
going to put it
Twitter.
on Twitter. Just a second. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody can have it. You guys can all break it down. I don't care. Brandon Marcello. Actually, I got to edit that. Let's see. Go ahead. You guys can take it though. I put it out on my. If you follow me on Twitter, you should see it now. I talked about this on Friday. It was posted on Thursday. You guys can break it down yourselves. All I'm saying is Brett Yormark's basing his decision off of a 10-year average, rolling average for the Big 12
Right.
that eliminates Texas and Oklahoma, which is something that Texas and Oklahoma fought against for a long time. No, wait, perception is the Big 12's weak because we're gone. That's not true. The Big 12 is actually a pretty good conference, and much more combined than you're going to find in, or not combined, much more competitive than you're going to find in the ACC. And that's where this argument from Brett Yormark is being started, is this data. If Navigate has it, Brett Yormark has had it in his hands for a very long time.
Right. Right. Well, let's see. Who's been good any good out in the Pac-12 over the last decade outside of Oregon?
Utah was
Utah
good.
had gotten to a point where they were pretty good. Washington was having its moments. They were in the playoff twice. Let's see. But Washington State and Oregon State made the CFP more. No, they didn't. More than any G5 lead. Let's see the algorithm. Yeah, go look it up. I mean, it's going to be there on. He's under Big 12 Mafia on Twitter. Go
Yes,
look it up.
B12 Mafia.
B12
B12 Mafia. Yep.
Yep. So, okay, you know what? I just did a screenshot of it. So let me pull that back up there and show you guys exactly what we're talking about here. Go back to this. I don't know how good that is now, but with it being a screenshot. Okay. Now look, yep. So we're gonna go back to this. We're almost done here. We're gonna get out of here. But look, AP top 25 finishes. The Pac-12 was 5th for the last 10 years. They were 5th. CFP appearances, the Big 12 was 4th in one, only one of those under CFP appearances, and that's because of Clemson.
Yes.
Average member SP plus would be Big 12 was ahead. Average member FPI, Big 12 was ahead. Average member Massey, Big 12 was ahead. Average member strength of schedule, Big 12 was ahead. Average member strength of record, Big 12 was ahead. So they should have been 2.5 per year getting in if it was a 16.
Right.
But how many of them would they have? It just depends on how they worked it out. Yeah. Here in the end, I'm just telling you, the way that it worked itself out is not. I mean, here's the thing: the CFP appearances that's actually kind of that's not really relevant to this right now because of the fact that you've got Clemson remaining in the same league, whereas Oklahoma, who was in 4 playoffs, isn't. So that may have changed things because you have TCU that also made the playoff, and then obviously Texas that made it. I want to say how many appearances does Clemson have? It may be 6. They would have been tied there if you were still using Oklahoma or Texas as part of that algorithm for the Big 12. It may have been different. It would have went up even. But in the end, I don't see how you would believe if you're the Big 12 that 2.5 model is going to work itself out like that, because it's not going to. Because it comes back to, in a 5 to 11, you're going to go to the people on the committee and however they're ranking it. The CFP committee is going to rank it no matter what. So your champion's still going to get in there. It's going to be, do they think that your second place team is as good as the ACC's? Because it's going to be one or the other. Oh, I don't know what you're even asking, Larry. I don't know what you're asking. How many times they finished in the top 25? It wouldn't be about the top 25, bro. It'd be about the top 16. I'm not sure why you're.
Yeah, the thing that I think what Larry's and I don't know, but I'm not in Larry's head, but what I think Larry's saying is these 7 markers are 7 markers. They're not the only 7 markers. The teams who got picked for the playoff are not going to be represented by this chart, which is exactly what I'm saying. Why, Brett Yormark, would you lean into this as your reason to make a decision? You have a committee, you have all these people with their personalities, and they're already baked in preconceived notions,
Sure.
and that's how you pick a playoff now. Not to say it has to stay that way. In fact, I would prefer we didn't do it that way. I want a BCS formula that is kind of unique. It takes out recruiting rankings. It gets rid of the baked in biases of the
Preseasons like ranks and shit like
preseason.
that.
You play 4 to 6 weeks. Go to the 6 weeks, and who's your best top 25? That's
Well,
what
we've always said,
that's my
top
world.
25 rankings early on are for nobody but content people.
Well, everybody says that, but they do dictate. They do
I'm saying they
drive.
should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they
Because they're
drive
not
the
real. The
narrative.
reality doesn't necessarily fit the actual, whether
Right.
they're a top 25 team or not. I was
No.
agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah, they drive the narrative, right? People now,
Correct.
whenever that week is, when those rankings come out, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I know those others were just for fun, but that's the reason that justifies this CFP," right? And I want to get rid of all those. The RPI is broken, by the way. The RPI is also something that Jeff Fuller has broken down and proven that there's a bias in the computer model itself, the way it's built, against the Big 12 and the ACC. So all these things together lead to chaos. And what I want something that's slimmed down. Everybody knows the formula.
Sure.
There's no black box, and everybody is starting from the same, ground rules. That's what I want.
Right. Right. And so, look, in absence of having that, though,
Yeah.
the best way for you to do this is to go to that 4-4-2-2-1. And I think that in absence of having it, as I'm saying, that isn't going to happen. First off, they're not going to the two entities that control this shit is SEC, Big Ten, which is to say also Fox and ESPN, but their big money makers are the SEC and the Big Ten. So this is going to continue being this way. If you want a chance to remain relevant, you must pick the 4-4-2-2-1. You must. You Big 12 fans out there, scream bloody murder at Brett Yormark instead of cheering him on, telling him he's crazy. Because no matter what, you're not going to get fairness. You're not going to get fairness. At least with you know exactly how many teams you get to put in, and guess what? You can play it out on the field. The top 4 teams will play it off for the 2 spots every year. Gives you a chance to make more money, gives you a chance to make sure that you have the best 2 teams in there, which at least theoretically would give you a better shot at winning a national championship for your conference and staying relevant in that conference. The 5-11, you're never gonna get a fair shake. You're never gonna get a fair shake. It's just not gonna happen.
Tell me, maybe you can help me, Jason, because with the SEC, you're gonna be eventually you're gonna be in a different place than I am. How do I cope with this, right? Do I continue to rage against it even after they've announced it and everything's done 5-11 for the next 6 years? Do I just sit on my opinions and not talk about them anymore? Because I'm really fighting this idea that I don't mind being militant. I don't mind putting my name out there and saying, "Hey, this is something I really see problems with," and continue to do that. Because I think right now with the Big 12, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to predict the next 2 years, Big 12 only gets 1 team in, or maybe they get one every other year over 3 years. And in doing so, they're going to some good teams. Oklahoma State 11-2 is going to get left out because South Carolina 9-3 is going to get in. And when that happens, invariably, everybody's going to be flipping out. And who are they going to be blaming? They're going to be blaming Brett Yormark. And what's sad is Brett Yormark's been a good commissioner. Just in this instance, he's been
This
manipulated.
is what will kill the Big 12, though,
In my
and that's
opinion,
what they'll
it's
remember.
going to hurt
That's
it.
what they'll remember. Big Lubbock,
Yeah.
you're wrong. This is not a short-term thing. I'm talking in the short term. In the short term, yeah, maybe your 5-11 thing works for you in the short term. I'm telling you, by the end of this little 6-year jaunt starting in 2026, you guys are fucked.
Yeah.
Because you won't have a national champion, and you probably won't in the 4-4-2-2-1. But guess what? You will have had extra teams get in there and have more of an opportunity to win one than you will in the other way. And so all you've done is gone further from relevancy. If you right now think about that, for 6 years, you would have 2 teams in. That's 12 teams in the college football playoff. 12. If you go 5-11, you're probably closer to 6. Half of that. That's long-term thinking, buddy. That's long-term thinking. I'm not sitting here doing this from an SEC perspective. I'm putting my Big 12 hat back on here.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm trying to put my Big 12 hat back on here for you folks. And I'm telling you, I don't want to see the Big 12 go by the wayside. I do not. I covered that league for the better part of 15 years. Basketball, football, constantly covering the Big 12. I'm an Oklahoma guy. I've loved the Big 12 and the Big 8 before that and the Southwest Conference before that, which is what makes up the Big 12. I'm telling you, I don't want to see these programs become not part of this thing. And this will make it not part of it. I'll never understand this rooting in national championships for a conference. No, I'm not talking about I'm talking about for the life of the conference. I don't give a shit about. Look, I'm gonna root for Oklahoma every year. I could give a shit about the rest of the SEC, buddy.
The Big Lubbock. Why don't you pull up his last comment?
SEC. I don't do that shit.
Jason, pull up Big Lubbock's last comment on 4-4-2-2. That one. Tell me why. Love it.
How is
Why?
this? What
If
if
they
we
already
told
are
you
getting 4 teams, why do you wanna break away? There's no reason to break away. At that point, you've already got the access you want. There is no reason for a breakaway. There's no reason for a super league if everybody generally agrees on strength of schedule is the determiner, and, somehow you make the
don't say
Big
you have
Ten
to agree
happy
to
with the
disagree, Ludwig.
ACC's 8 teams. There is no reason to break away. The super league is here. It's 1 to 16. And if you go 5-11, you're basically saying today's the day it starts.
That's right. You're saying they'll break away by 2031. They break away today if you go 5-11.
No, well, in meaning that you're getting more access. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That has we're not even no the rest of the leagues they don't have one. They don't. They don't right now. Look, basketball is not the same as football. I'm telling you now, if you go away from this, you got to tell us why. Because don't just say we'll have to agree to disagree because that's not an answer. He asked you a question. Why will it break up like that? He just told you why it won't. Yeah, Tech that has never won the Big 12 is winning the Natty, right? No, I'm with you on that, Larry. I'm with you on that.
Our Moosehead's got it right. BYU just needs to win games. Every team just needs to win games. If you go
That's
12
easy
and
to say. Easy
yeah,
to say.
if you go 12-0, 11-1, more than likely you're going to play in a game that's going to give you enough profile you're going to get in the playoff. What I'm saying is that a 2-loss 11-2 team. Let's just put Oklahoma State in this year's position that BYU does. They have a late loss. I haven't looked at their schedule. Let's say they lose late to TCU. And it's really bad. TCU is like a 5-6 team. That's like Kansas last year for BYU. I would be willing to bet $100 right now if that was to happen, Oklahoma State would be left out, and it would be whoever won that championship game would get the slot. I'm gonna argue up until that moment that is what will happen, and once it does, everybody's gonna be looking around and nobody's gonna want to take responsibility. And the person they're gonna be mad at, what's ironic is everybody's gonna be mad at me because I told them what was gonna happen and then it happened.
No, I know. You listen, that's part of the reason I wanted to bring you on here is I wanted to explain it and put myself in front of it a little bit because I'm an SEC guy. They hate me all they want,
Right.
right? But the truth be told is, I feel like you guys are going after Bomber on this shit, and he's trying to. For all the Big 12 people that have followed you guys, there's a lot of them that are upset with you because of
Oh,
you guys are saying this shit, and it's
it was,
wild to me. It is
yeah.
wild to me. Guys, understand that there's no way that him or the Wild you they don't want to see the Big 12 go away and not be worth the shit because they're in it.
And I completely disagree with John Kurtz and Coos from Coos Corner.
Yeah,
I just
I think Kurtz has lost his damn mind.
I don't know what's going on, but somebody's drinking water.
Mhm.
Kurt's got an invite to the Big 12 Media Days. I think he listened to 3 days of Brett Yormark saying 5-11, 5-11, 5-11,
He
and
always
he
gets
came
an invite.
back and he came back and he's like 5-11's the way. So, and I also think that Ute and I are new entrants to the Big 12. So it's easy to us to look from the outside the perception of what the Big 12 is now. And by the way, we're judging ourselves in doing this
That's right.
is not where it needs to be. And 5-11 is not going to get you the access, the eyeballs, the games for people to change their mind. It's just not going to do it. One team qualifying, losing in the first round because it's a 9 seed, not getting a home game is not going to help the Big 12's appearance. And people are cheering for that for some whacked out reason, and I just cannot understand why.
Yeah, Drew, for the last time, I'm going to tell you this for the last time. The reason that I'm telling you the 5-11 is better for the SEC is because they only get the 5-11 if they make strength of schedule way more than the rest of that shit does. Pay attention to all of it, not just whatever part you want to pick on and talk shit on all the whole time we're in here. Pay attention to all of it. It only goes to 5-11. The 5-11 model only happens when the SEC and Big Ten get the guarantee that their strength of schedule shit matters more. Otherwise, it will never happen. It will go to 4-4-2-2-1. In which case the Big 12 lives, and so does the ACC, without coming together as one point. The 5-11 is only going to work then. But I'm telling you, but that's not good for the Big 12. That's not good for the Big 12. And it's exactly the opposite of what Big Lubbock said, that the 5-11 will get rid of that scheduling. No, it won't. The scheduling agreement between the Big 10 and SEC works better because it works for their strength of schedule model. The strength of schedule model matters more in the 5-11.
And that's the thing the Big Ten does not care about. They have no value in strength of schedule. They
No,
play a
no,
ninth
because
game,
it's
and
working without strength of schedule
that's
for
right.
them.
That's right.
It's working for them.
The hue and cry and outrage that the SEC only plays 8 conference games is really why we're here at all. Larry said it again. He said the SEC is the only conference in this whole conversation doesn't care if any of these happen, right? The Big Ten is not in that position. They do care. They have a rooting interest. They want the SEC desperately to play 9 games and then to have a scheduling agreement so that all the teams in the North that play on cold Saturdays can come south at the end of the season and they can play a game at a Georgia or a Auburn. They're going to get gaggles of money, and that game everybody's going to look at and say, well, if you lost in Michigan State, who cares? You traveled down to Auburn, right? And you made that trek. It was a cross country deal, and you did it. So we're going to give you bonus credit for even attempting that game. Whereas if the Big 12, the ACC tried to have that game in the middle of the season, they get nothing for getting road beat, by an SEC team or even winning. Really, they don't get a ton of credit either. So the Big Ten of this whole conversation is really what's driving. It's why nothing has happened yet. This negotiation would have been over, done and dusted if the SEC already played 9 games. Because then strength of schedule is lessened, and then it doesn't matter. Everybody's on the same page. But if I was the SEC, I would not want a ninth game. I know you said, Jason, you
I
disagree
do,
with
because
me
I
on
want to
that.
play everybody in the
I
SEC.
know you do because you're
And
way
I
out
think,
here west, but they don't care. You get that,
I'm
right?
telling you that a lot of the all the time SEC members want to play more SEC schools.
I've not
I'm going to
seen
tell you
that.
that most SEC fan bases couldn't give a shit about playing a non-conference game. They don't care.
I'm gonna do a Twitter poll.
Aside from their Clemson as a South Carolina game,
You just
Florida.
convinced me. I'm going to do a Twitter poll, and I've got some SEC followers now, and I'm going to ask, and I'm going to say, look, if you're an SEC person, do you want a ninth game, or would you rather have a stronger strength of schedule?
I
And
would love to see it.
I'm going to see what that poll is tomorrow, because on a Sunday, a lot of people should vote, and in my opinion, I think the strength of schedule thing is way more of a fallback, because you've said it yourself, than a ninth game. I think the ninth game has no value to the SEC right this second. So
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
see.
hey, listen, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see that poll. But is there really a problem with getting the best teams to play for the national championship? I don't
No,
think there has to be. No,
that's not about this. It's not about getting the
it
best
has
teams
nothing
in
to
the
do with it,
championship game.
Spangler. Nothing to do with it.
No, it's not about who. It's not. Look, I love merit. I live in the United States. I've worked my way off. I don't have a degree, right? I've done pretty well for myself, and the merit thing works for me. This is not merit. What this is basically saying you're going to be living on D Street, and maybe every once in a while you can come out to the pub on Main Street, and we'll allow that, but you can't live here. You can't live on A Street, and that's what what the 511 is. I want to live on A Street. Yeah, I have an upper apartment, but who the hell cares? I live on A Street, and
Yeah.
I'm there. That you can call it welfare, call it whatever you want. I don't care. That is what I want, is access. I don't care about the merit thing, playing your way in. It's not. I almost went religious there for a second. I don't want to do
Look,
that.
I'll just say this, Drew. The issues they say 2 or 3 loss ACC team is better than a 3 or 4 loss SEC team. That's how they do it now. That's exactly what the SEC is fighting though right now. That's the SEC side of it. You want to know what the end is? They believe, and here's where I'm gonna go pro SEC with you, that the best teams in the country are in the SEC by and large, and they are. But unless you go by strength of schedule, and this is also what's hurting the Big 12, by the way. The Big 12 is seen as it's a how you view it problem. How many teams, Bomber, answer this question for me because I want to make sure I know this is right. How many teams were within one game of the play, or 2 games of the conference championship game?
Oh, I don't know if conference champion. I know there were 5 that were 1 game away from being in the 12-team playoff. Does that help?
No, I'm saying okay. Well, I was just saying just in terms of getting into the conference championship game alone.
BYU in the Big 12, BYU and Colorado were 1 game out, and they all tied for the.
And there was another 4 or 5 easy that were within 2 games, right?
I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked that deep.
So if I've only looked at the top. There were 3 tied at the top, right? 3 tied at the top.
4
tied at the top.
Yeah, Iowa State. We're talking about conference records here.
Yes.
Iowa State, Arizona State, Colorado, and BYU all in conference had the same record.
Okay.
Go back to divisions. Let's go to 4 freaking divisions. Win a division, get to the playoff in your conference, and then win your way into the big dance. That's what I want. I want to go to divisions.
Which is exactly what that 4-4-2-2-1 would do. Just bring in if you do the.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So the point is, they're going to do this. They're going to fight for the things that work well for their conference. And I don't blame not one single conference for doing this, by the way, not one. Now, I understand that the Big 12 is going to hate it that the Big 2, the ACC and the Big 12 hate that the Big 2 have more power. Absolutely. The SEC hates it that you got an Indiana and SMU team getting in over a 3-loss Alabama team that would have beat the shit out of either one of them.
Well, I don't know.
That's easy for me to say. It's easy for you to say the other thing. It's easy for you to say no. The point is, these are narratives that are coming out of this side, and that's why we have an argument. But the best way to get to on the field is the model that and I think they did this inadvertently because I don't think they give a shit about helping anyone out. 4-4-2-2-1 gives the Big 12 and the ACC the best possible scenario for getting the most teams in. Period. End of story. If Texas Tech would have, if that's an if though, they didn't.
I want to get rid of the ifs.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. You know what? If they were doing a 4-4-2-2-1 last year, you would have had the top 4 teams, which Tech would have been one of them, playing for a chance to get into the damn tournament, to get into the playoff. Think about that. You would have had another shot. It wouldn't have just rested on TCU.
No,
maybe not.
No, Tech was not in that 4, so no, they wouldn't have. But it does. I mean, it still has value. What you're saying, it's just a different school, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You would have had the top 4 teams would have had a shot.
Right. That's exactly right.
Instead of just the teams that won the tiebreaker and got into the conference championship game.
Won a coin flip. Yeah.
That's right.
They worked hard for that, ASU. ASU fans crowing like they're something this, that, or the other. Look, you guys were in a championship game via. Look, a BYU ASU game would have been better, in my opinion, than the BYU Iowa State game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the styles make fights. I'll give you that.
BYU's defense was
styles make fights. Absolutely.
Top 12. By the end of the year, they were
good at stopping the run.
No, they were good. No. It was the reverse. You couldn't put the ball in the air. That's why they beat SMU.
Okay.
So their defense. You might not have seen it. They were lights out.
What would you have done with Scatterboo then?
Scatterboo did what he did to everybody to BYU, but he also did that to Texas. So don't come at me with some SEC garbage that SEC defense would have been so better. The Arizona State had Texas down. A penalty bailed them out of a playoff spot.
I keep
So I
hearing
don't
that
want to talk
Texas had
about
the
that.
best defense in the country last year,
And they
except
got
for
run
Arizona
over by
State. Damn skippy they did.
Scadaboo.
Yes,
So
they did. Yes,
don't
they
talk
did.
to me about who has the better defense.
I was just hey man, I was just asking the questions here. I'm just
BYU,
asking questions here, brother. Relax.
don't get me going on how good that BYU team was. But I don't play the what if game. The what if game I lived on for 50 years, it's garbage. It
Yeah.
is just the potential to play in has always been the brass ring that BYU had to fight, scrape, and so I'm a unique person looking at this from the outside looking in. That's why I can be so critical. Is because BYU had to do the merit thing, and how did it turn out? How many CFPs did BYU get when they had good teams? None.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's not how you base the decisions.
No. Yep. Let's dude, you don't get to talk softball in 1 year. 1 year, Lubbock, you don't get to talk softball, brother. You don't get to do it. No, no. When you went and bought a player, you bought one player and we're talking about it. You don't get to do that. Never gonna work. More run out of doing nothing is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. But
are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
You should be entertained. Folks, make sure that you are hitting the like button. I hadn't even looked in here, but I don't think we probably have near as many likes as we should. 20 likes. We've had over 400 people watching in here. Come on, folks.
Yeah, get to work.
Hit the freaking like button. I think what I'm going to start doing is making, because we have 150 people watching right now, most of which are probably, I'm guessing most of which are on
Twitter.
Yeah. Twitter, folks. Do us a favor. If you want us to be able to continue to put out this content all the time, you've got to come over to Hall of Fame College Football on YouTube and hit the like button and become a subscriber. You got to do it. I know you watch things on YouTube because that's where it is. What I'm going to have to start doing is cutting it off at a certain point like you guys do, huh?
We just started doing that. I'm not 100% sure it's working. I wish we could just tap in to live streams on X and get the same value for watch, but
yeah, you can't because I don't even know. It's so convoluted how you make money through Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, so
I'm not there either. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't been able to do it. So
yeah, I don't know. Twitter's robbing a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you can say what you want. He was owned by the Texans in the first half. Yeah, but you know what? They had a bye, and everybody who had a bye played shitty early on. They were off too long. And no matter what you say, he beat the crap out of you the entire second half.
Yeah, getting rid of the buys cannot happen sooner, in my opinion. I don't know why I think he's wanting. Oh, I do know why, because he wants his teams to play less games. But at the end of the day, I don't think the buy helps college football. It helps the NFL. The NFL is a different league. College football should be playing all through December. We should have a championship game at the end of the year.
Yeah, all this too many games bullshit, whatever. It's one thing to have a bye, but I think you have to redo it because you can't be off a month. I guarantee you, before you didn't notice this in the 14 playoff because they all had the same amount of time off.
Yeah.
Right. This idea that you can have a team that played the week before, or basically 2 weeks before almost, and then they get to that next level. And these guys have been off since conference championship weekend or whatever. That doesn't work out well for you. So I think I haven't seen exactly how that's going to work out just yet, but I know it's coming to a head as well. Bomber, anything else you want to add? I'm ready to get out of here.
No, I appreciate the invite. I appreciate the time. I will continue until it is done. I will until it's not an option, and it is an option. I will keep fighting, not only for the Big 12, which I have done for 3 years, but I will try to be on march, looking for things that will give us a leg up. At the end of the day, in my opinion, the Big 12 is better 4-4, 2-2, 1-3, and I think we will look back if we go 5-11, and the Big 12 will rue the day they even heard of 5-11. So there we are.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I would agree with you 100%. you know, I would just tell you that again, I have my freaking Big 12 hat on in here. I like the idea of access for everybody, and this one is coming for you there, Drew. I like the idea of access for everybody. I want to make sure that everybody gets in. But again, you got to understand that it's not going to work out that way for the Big 12 or the ACC at that 5-11. They're going to, it's only, however this gets set up, understand one thing. It's going to be the best for the SEC and the Big 10. That's how it's going to be. Because, so if you go to 5-11, they're going to make sure that strength of schedule matters. They're going to get their 4 teams in there and or more guaranteed from here on out, starting in 2026. Believe that. You might as well see how many you can get into. That's the way I would put it. All right, I'm going to end this with, I'm going to throw I didn't have a commercial break in there, so I'm going to throw our commercial breaks up now at the end. I appreciate everybody coming in. We will see you all on the next one.
Peace.
Hey, Jason Watkins here with Hall of Fame College Football. And if you are ready to back your favorite team, the Sooners, and fade that Texas hype train every Saturday this fall, there's only one place to do it, MyBookie. Right now, you can double your first deposit up to $1,000 when you sign up at hofmedia.us/mybookie1000. That's hofmedia.us/mybookie1000. Yep, 100% deposit bonus, and it takes less than 5 minutes to get started. Whether you're betting college football, rolling the dice in the online casino, or dropping a 10-leg parlay on SEC Chaos, MyBookie has everything you need. Bet anytime, anywhere, on the go, at the tailgate, or yelling at the refs from your couch. Just don't talk trash. Put your money where your mouth is. Hit that link, hofmedia.us/mybookie1000, and get your deposit bonus today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie and Hall of Fame College Football. Are you tired of your game day gear looking like it's stuck in the offseason? Well, step up your fandom with Hall of Fame College Football's official Fanatics partner store. Whether you're a diehard Oklahoma Sooners fan like myself, bleeding crimson and cream, or you rep another one of the SEC's heavy hitters, Fanatics has you covered. Shop thousands of officially licensed hats, jerseys, sideline polos, and exclusive championship merch from the entire Power 4 and Group of 6 too, all shipped directly to your doorstep and fast. You want to gear up like your favorite coaches and players? Are you looking for that perfect tailgate tee or a statement piece for your man cave? Fanatics is your one-stop shop for authentic college football gear from everybody that plays the game. So do yourself and your team a favor. Click our link in the description or simply log on to hofmedia.us/fanatics. That's hofmedia.us/fanatics. And you can shop everything that you want for the best prices of the day right on our Fanatics partner page.